Hello, my name is Bonnie and this is A Knitter Obsessed. This is my knitting podcast where I talk about all things knitting currently going on in my life. Today I am joined by my two dogs. We got Maggie and Raina over here. And it is a ridiculously rainy day here in Northern California. So we've been in the middle of a massive storm the last few days and I kept kind of waiting for it to clear up so I could get some sun and I could film, and it kind of seems like that's just not going to happen. So we're gonna film today, but I did have to turn on some extra lights, and so the lighting in here might just be a little funky. It might kind of shift around as the storm keeps going outside. We'll see. Hopefully it's not too bad, but if you could just bear with me a little bit if the lighting's a little funky on this video. It was either dealing with the lighting or not filming at all at this point. So we're just gonna give it a go. Today, I have quite a lot of knitting to go through with you guys. It's been about 3 weeks since my last update, maybe 2.5, I can't quite remember. But in that time, I've gotten 4 finished objects, and then I have a whip to go through with you guys, and I have a pretty decent yarn haul because it was the Knit Picks had a really big sale a couple weeks ago and all that yarn finally came in, and so I've got yarn for quite a few projects to show off to you guys at the end of the video. So before we get into the projects, I did want to talk about what I'm wearing. This is my Arthur cardigan, which is a pattern by Tricot Design MCL. I knit this in Miss Babs yarn. This is her Yowza, which is a superwash merino in the colorway, I think it's Eternity. I'll have all of the information from my Ravelry page linked down below, along with information about everything I talk about today. So if you want anything, if you want to, figure out any details or anything, you can go down below and I'll have it all in the descriptions. But I think that's what it was. If I'm wrong, you'll be able to figure it out there. And I held it with the soft silk mohair that silk mohair that they offer. I can't think of the name of it right now, but it's in the colorway Ziggy Stardust, which is, I love this pattern. I love this cardigan. I think it's fantastic. And this is my favorite way to wear it, which is just over like a band t-shirt. I don't know, there's something that I really like about combining like band t-shirts with knitwear that makes me weirdly happy that I can't explain. And so yeah, that's what I'm wearing. I love this. I've really been loving that the weather's cool enough for me to wear my knitwear more often. So, and then before we go too much further, I did want to say a really heartfelt thank you to everyone for the reception on my last video. In case you missed it, I posted a knitting hot takes video. But for a few reasons, it was a video I was just a little bit nervous to publish, and I wasn't 100% sure what the reaction was going to be to it. And overwhelmingly, the reaction was completely positive, and it was really, truly amazing to read everyone's comments and read all of the support and the, just the sense of community I got from all of it was just what I needed. And it was really, truly special, and I just wanted to thank you guys for that. So for my first finished object, we're just gonna start right off the bat with the biggest one because I'm excited about it. And I knit this as a gift, and the person who I'm gifting it to is potentially showing up in the next like half hour or so. So I want to make sure I get this section of the video out of the way so I can tuck this away and not risk her seeing it. But this is, guys, I finished it. It's the Hue Shift Afghan. So if you've been following along this channel, I've been talking about this all year, ever since I started this podcast, because I have been knitting this since last November. So I started this blanket on, November 17th, 2023. And I cast it off on November 20th, 2024. So this blanket took me 1 year and 3 days to knit. It would have taken me less than a year, but I had some issues, which I'll go over as I'm talking through this, but it's done. It's done. This, I've been knitting it, like I said, for the last year as a Christmas gift for my oldest niece. And so apparently the dogs are restless. So I've been knitting this for the last year as a Christmas gift to my oldest niece, and she is the one she should be coming over pretty soon here. I'm going to babysit her, and we're going to hang out and do some watercolors together. And I've been teaching her how to knit. Honestly, it's been a lot of fun, but I'm looking forward to today. But yeah, so let's talk about this before she shows up. So I'm going to stand up so I can show you the whole thing because it's huge. So here she is in all her glory. It's too big to get into the frame. So like I said, I will be putting in some pictures so you can see the whole thing. But it's a mitered square blanket. There are 100 squares all together. You knit them in 4 sections of 25 squares each, and then you seam the sections together. And when you seam them together, you do kind of alternate their orientation so you can see the stripes change directions and all meet in the middle, which is a really nice detail. It's really effective and pretty. It is a gradient blanket, so you have 10 different colors. I'm gonna bring it off to the side so I can talk to you guys. You have 10 different colors of yarn. And then you take those colors and you combine them according to a pattern, and it creates this beautiful gradient. And I'm seriously obsessed with it. When I finished it, I just put it over the recliner in our living room and just stared at it for like a full day. And I still need to wash it and throw it in the washer and dryer and give it a nice clean, but it's all the way done finally. Some things to say about this pattern. I had never picked up stitches before I did this pattern, and I now have full confidence in my ability to pick up stitches because I've picked up so many stitches over the course of this. I had done very little, if any, seaming before this pattern, and I now feel pretty dang confident in my seaming because especially when you seam the 2 halves together, the last seam, it's a lot of seaming. You seam for quite a while. It took me a good chunk of time, but it came out really nice. In general, it's a really good basic pattern. There's nothing too difficult to do, but you will just get better at some of those basic skills whether you want to or not by completing this blanket. I loved the process. There were times when it felt like a slog. There were times where like you finish the first section, you're like, oh my gosh, I've done so much, this is so cool, and then you realize you still have 3 more sections and seaming and a border to go, and like just the scale of it would sometimes feel kind of daunting, and I would have to take a step back and take a break from the project, which is why it took a little over a year. But the actual knitting of it was a ton of fun, and I always really enjoyed it when I was working on it. The only thing that is not my favorite is this yarn. So this is Knit and Knit Picks Mighty Stitch, which is an 80% acrylic and 20% superwash wool. It has tons and tons of gorgeous bright colors like these. It's really affordable. It's machine washable, easy to care for. It's honestly a perfect yarn for this project, and I would use it again in a heartbeat. But it's just not my actual favorite to knit with. It's very splitty and kind of slippery, and just I can't knit with it as mindlessly as I can knit with like a wool. But I also wouldn't want to make a blanket like this out of a wool, so it sort of is what it is. That being said, this is a very heavy blanket. It is, doing the last border on it when I had the entire blanket in my lap, I was like, oh my gosh, I literally could not have made this in the summer. Like, it's very warm, it's very heavy, it's very big. So, but yeah, I think my niece is going to absolutely love this. I'm so excited to give it to her. I kind of want to keep it, but like obviously I won't, but like I kind of want to keep it. I don't think I made any modifications to this pattern. I followed the pattern exactly, with one exception, which is that I'm not gonna be able to show it, I think, because it's black yarn, but on the very little edges of the last borders, those are the only like raw edges that show on this entire blanket, because every other edge is at some point picked up and knitted. But these are the only ones that show, are these like 9 rows or something right here. And so I did slip the selvage stitches on these so that you got a nice clean finish, and it sort of blended in a little bit with the bind off on the edging next to it. Like, there's definitely a jog, there's definitely a seam, but it's a little bit more seamless than it would have been without slipping the stitches. And so that was the one change that I made, and I am happy with it. Everything else is knit exactly to pattern. And yeah, for all of the colored yarns, I used about 1 1/3 skeins. So I have about 60 to 65 grams of each of the colored skeins left. And for the black, I used just barely over 2 skeins, which that is actually the reason that this blanket took slightly over a year to make instead of slightly under a year. The kit that I got to knit this came with 3 skeins of black yarn, but for the life of me, I do not know what happened to the 3rd skein. It's gone. Like, I tore my house apart. I have no idea where it went. So I only had 2 skeins, and I ran out of yarn on the bind off of the very last row of the border. It was completely done. All I needed to do was bind off, and I ran out of yarn. I was like, no. So I had to order more and wait for it to show up, and it took about a week to get the yarn in, and that's what pushed it over the year mark on this project. So, but we're there now. So I now have, you know, an entire thing of black yarn because of that. So, but yeah, I think that's all I have to say about this. I'm so excited. I love this. It's so squishy and amazing, and I highly recommend it. If you're on the fence about knitting this, just go for it. And just know that it's going to take you a long time, and that's okay. And you can pick it up and put it down as you want, and that's okay, because the final result is so stunning. And it's one of those projects where, like, I could tell it was amazing the whole way through, but it was not until I got all of the pieces seamed together that you really go, whoa. Like, it's just, you never quite see the whole effect until it's done. And then it's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing all at once. So it can feel a little discouraging before that, where you're kind of going like, I guess it looks cool, yeah, but eh. But then at the end, like, the reveal, it's completely worth it. It's the biggest thing I've ever made, the most, like, complicated thing I've ever made, just in terms of, like, the number of parts of it that you have to do, and, like, the number of colors and all of that. Not technique-wise. Technique-wise is pretty easy, but, like, as far as, like, needing to, amount of things you need to do, it's probably the most complicated. It's my longest project, and it's probably my favorite thing I've ever made too. So hopefully my niece will love this for Christmas. And like I said, I've been teaching her how to knit the last month or two. So I don't know. I think it's just I'm really excited to gift her something knitted while she's learning how to knit, and just kind of show her the possibilities of what she can make, you know, down the line if she keeps practicing. And I'm really excited that she's learning to love it. So yeah, very, very knit-worthy person in my life. So, okay. So, my next finished object, much smaller. This one took me 2 days to knit. But this is my Cargill Cowl by Rebecca Clove. So this is something I just whipped up really nice and quick. This was actually on my fall knitting plans video, if you've watched that. So I did follow through with one of the plans at least. And this is knit in clover yarn. It's their mohair 100%, which is yarn I picked up in Japan. So it's not yarn that I've seen anywhere in the US at all. And yeah, it's really interesting. It really is just 100% mohair. There's no silk or anything in it. So the yarn is marketed on the ball as a bulky weight yarn, but this is a DK weight pattern, and I just knit it to pattern. And I mean, it's still pretty drapey and stuff. So I think anywhere between a DK and a bulky, just because it's a fluffy yarn. So the fluff is what makes it bulky, and you can kind of adjust it as you need. But it was really interesting to work with. It was obviously very grippy to itself. It was very hard to do these little dip stitches, because you have to pull the yarn like through a hole in the fabric, and it just didn't want to pull through because it was so grippy with itself. It is unbelievably soft. It is so nice. And I was really worried when I first knit it that it wasn't going to be drapey at all, because it was like stiff. Like, it was a very sturdy piece of fabric. But as soon as I blocked it, it got nice and drapey, and I think it's going to be a really nice piece for putting undercoats and all of that. So a few things about this pattern, I did crop it significantly. So I think I cut off about like 10 centimeters or something on this. So it's supposed to be a very long cowl that sort of doubles in, but I just wasn't super interested in that. And I think this is going to be much more wearable the way it is. The way it was designed, it just seemed really cumbersome. So, but it did just absolutely fly off my needles. This was supposed to, I cast this on as something that I could just put in my purse and take places and have an easy on-the-go project that isn't a full sweater. And instead I just sat on the couch and knit this all the way through until it was done because it was just really fun and I didn't want to stop. And it was really fun to watch it grow. I used, because I cropped this so much, I used way less yarn than I expected. So I had 5 skeins of this yarn and I used a little over 2. So I have more than half of my yarn still left over. So I'm debating making a second one as like a gift for someone for Christmas since it knit up so fast, but I haven't decided yet. Or I might look for something else to make with it. So if you have any ideas for what to do with a DK or worsted 100% mohair yarn, send some patterns my way because I'd be interested. Let me slip it on for you. So yeah, nothing crazy, just simple, nice neutral color. It kind of flops over on one side, which is comfy to wear, and I could just see if you button, you know, your jacket up over this, it'd be so nice and cozy. So nice and quick and simple. Let's see, this was knit with a US 2.5 needle for the ribbing, or 3mm, and a US 6 or 4mm for the rest of it. That's what the pattern called for. I did a German twisted cast on so that the cast on edge would have some elasticity to it. The pattern called for a backwards loop cast on. And from what I can tell, that's just Rebecca Clo's favorite cast on. But I personally can't really stand a backwards loop cast on. So I picked one that I liked. And then on the other side, it's just a long tail cast on. I kind of wish I'd gone with something with a little bit more elasticity because it's like a little stretched out seaming, but I just use that as the bottom of the cowl and it works out fine. So yeah, that is this one. Okay, next finished object. This one isn't blocked yet. It's a hat, and I like to block my hats on balloons, and I don't have a balloon right now, so I've been putting it off, but I still think it's worth showing off because I'm actually really happy with this one. But this, let me get the brim all figured out here. This is the Yet Another Cable Hat by Robyn Fieri. I knit this out of wool that I picked up in Boonville earlier this year. It's from Mendocino Wool and Fiber, which is a yarn mill in Ukiah. And this was an unlabeled skein of yarn, but from what I remember, it was 50% alpaca and 50% merino. And it's sort of in the like heavy worsted to Aran sort of range of thickness. From what I can tell, again, it wasn't labeled, but just that's how it kind of knit up and what it feels like. This is an all over cable hat, and it has 3 different cables. So you get the little right leaning cables and left leaning cables that come into each other to form like the almost braid. And then you have the tight little twisted cables in between them, which are really cute. It has a long brim. So it's got like 5 inches of brim that you can then fold in half, so you have the double folded brim. For the cast on the brim, I just did a long tail cast on, but I did the long tail cast on in pattern, so you know, a purl and a knit, purl and a knit, and I like the edging that it gives that. It breaks it up a little bit compared to like just a straight long tail cast on. So I knit this one in about 5 days, I think. So I cast this on November 5th and I cast it off on November 9th. So again, another nice quick project. The cables were really addictive and like hard to put down, so they were a ton of fun. I did the whole thing without a cable needle, which was not a problem at all. The little cables, the pattern actually tells you how to do this without a cable needle. And then for the bigger ones, I actually did them in 2 different ways. So when I was crossing one direction, I'm not going to try and remember which direction is which, but one of the directions I was able to just sort of drop the stitches off the needle, knit the 2 that I needed to knit, and then like pick the stitches back up and knit them. The other direction, every time I tried to do it that way, I was dropping stitches like crazy. For those, I would rearrange the stitches manually before I tried to knit, so you know, just to contain the tension. So for one, I was knitting with stitches just hanging off the project, and for the other one, I made sure all the stitches were secured before continuing to knit. So it just depended, and what, where I was at in the pattern. But that worked really well for me, and I never needed to get a cable needle, and it went really, really fast because of that. So I don't always knit without a cable needle. There are times when it's just easier and nicer to have a cable needle, and like I don't fight it then. Like there's nothing wrong with using a cable needle, but if there's a pattern that works really nicely without one, it does save you a lot of time if you can do it without one. So but yeah, I really like the way this fits. It's really, really soft, lovely yarn. It feels really good. I can't wait to see it blocked because it will just open it up a little bit. And right now when I wear it, it is just a little snug on my head. And so I think blocking will, keep it snug, but just loosen it up that teensy bit, which I'm looking forward to. I knit this, it was a US 6 needle for the ribbing and a US 7 for the top, or for the rest of the hat, for the body of the hat. So let me see about putting it on. This is absolutely going to destroy my hair. So yeah, there she is. That's my hat. Doesn't have a lot of extra room on the brim, so if you like a slouchy hat, I would add another pattern repeat to this. I knit this exactly to pattern, so whatever it called for in the pattern, that's what I knit. Same with the brim. I knit the brim to the pattern specifications as well. But it fits really comfortably. I have a fairly big head and it's not too tight, and I like it a lot. I am debating putting a pom-pom on it, but I haven't decided yet. So I still have a whole nother ball of this yarn. And so I was thinking about maybe making some matching like fingerless gloves to go with it. So I have a little winter set, and then if I have enough leftover yarn after that, I think I might do a pom-pom on this, but I want to wait and see what I have to work with. So that was my Yet Another Cable Hat by Robyn Fieri. I have one more finished object, but I don't have it with me because it was a gift and I've already given it away. But my last finished object is a bracelet that I made for my other niece, not the one who's getting the blanket. And I will put up a picture of it. I did take one picture of it before I gave it to her. So the reason I'm teaching my oldest niece to knit is because my younger niece asked me to teach her how to knit. But the second we sat down, she's just a little too young for it still and just did not have the attention span and was just like, absolutely not, and ran off and started playing with the toys we had out and stuff. Where my oldest niece went, oh, that looks interesting, and sat down and decided to learn. So I was very excited that one of my nieces wanted to learn, and hopefully, my younger niece will come back to it in a year or two when she's a little bit more focused. But as I was teaching her, she said she really, really wanted a knit bracelet, which made me laugh a little bit because I kind of think that might just be like a sweatband. But that's okay. I'm happy to, get her what she wants. And so I sat down and I was trying to decide what the best way to do a knit bracelet would be. And what I came up with was I did a little like 4-inch section of double knitting, and it's just like 10 or 11 stitches wide of double knitting. So it's maybe like a 1/2 inch wide and 4 inches long. And I kept the ends on either side really long. And then I wound a couple more threads through each end, pulled those tight and knotted them, and then did like a little single crochet chain on either side. That sounds complicated. I'll put up a picture. It's just a little strip and then the chains on the ends, and called it good there. And she was so happy. She loved it so much. It fit her wrist perfectly. She's got, a little teeny tiny wrist still, so I didn't need to knit for very long. And I think the double knitting was the way to go because it's just a little bit more sturdy and it's not going to roll, and it's got like, it holds up a little bit more. It actually feels substantial as opposed to if I just knit like, a strip of something, I just feel like it'd be so flimsy and it would just fall apart really fast and not be worth it. That being said, I did all of this on leftover sock yarn that I had from my pair of socks I knit earlier this year. So it was knit out of Knit Pick Stroll in the colorway Supernova. I did it all on a US 2 needle. Yeah, nothing crazy. For the double knitting, I've only ever done double knitting one other time, so I just used the instructions for the armhole finishings on my Tonight top as a way to like set up and end the bracelet because it's just not a technique I know super well on my own without a little bit of help. So technically her bracelet is the exact replica of the armhole finishings on my tonight top. So, but yeah, she was over the moon. She absolutely loved it. It was her birthday earlier this week, so I gave it to her for that. So, all right. So those are all the finished objects I have. I have one whip to show you because I need to cast on some more projects. So my one whip that I got with me is my Oslo Sweater by Petite. And this guy's almost done too. It is so close. I am on the ribbing for the second sleeve. So I've got, I think, 15 more rows of ribbing and then the bind off, and it will be done. So this is my Oslo Sweater by Petite. This is knit in Silver Pennies yarn. It's 2 yarns held together. The first one is the Yak U yarn, which is a sock yarn with a bit of yak in it, in the colorway Aquamarine. And it's held with her Fluff and Stuff, which is a baby story alpaca in the colorway Jade. And it's, as always, it's coming up more blue on screen than it is in real life. In real life, it is very much so like an emerald green. It is absolutely stunning. So I cannot get cameras to pick up the color of this sweater for some reason. But some aspects of this pattern, it's just a very basic drop shoulder. There's no like real shoulder details on this one. It just sort of blends in where you pick up the stitches, which I think looks really nice and clean. Even though I love like a nice like braided shoulder detail on drop shoulders, I also do appreciate how clean this looks. It's very nice. It has some, you can see the neck shaping on the front. It has a very thick double folded collar, which is my favorite part about this pattern. It's just so lovely looking. And then tapered sleeves, and I went for about a little less ribbing than the pattern called for. It's supposed to have like 3.5 inches of ribbing, and I think I have like 2 3/4 inches of ribbing. So I also cropped this quite a bit. So I knit mine about 2 inches shorter than the pattern called for. And I think it's perfect. I think if I'd gone the full 2 inches and done the full ribbing, it would have been a very long sweater. So just, if you're making the sweater, be cautious and try it on as you go to make sure it's the length you want. This is one of the best fitting sweaters I have ever made. It fits so nicely. It has a little tiny bit of body shaping, waist shaping in the body. And I wasn't sure I was gonna like keep it in because I wasn't sure I wanted like a tapered sweater, but it's not tapered. It's very subtle, and it just keeps the sweater from having too much bulk throughout the body of it. And it's so nice. And similarly, when you join in the round, you don't cast on stitches under the arms. And I don't know, something about the whole thing is just so, it's oversized, but not too oversized where it feels like you just have like extra fabric in places. Like it just fits so nicely. The sleeves have the perfect taper. The collar's really nice. Like I'm honestly, I love this pattern so much more than I thought I would. I thought it was just going to be kind of simple and whatever, but it's honestly stunning. I love it so much. I cannot wait for this to be done. My original goal for getting it done was to get it done by Saturday, which is probably the day this is up. I'm filming it on Friday, but tomorrow we're going to Thanksgiving at my in-laws' house, and I was hoping to have it done by then. And the thing is, I'm definitely going to finish the sweater today. Like I only have a little bit of ribbing left to do. It's fine. But blocking something right now and getting it to dry by tomorrow with the kind of weather we're having right now it feels unlikely, and it feels far-fetched, and like maybe I shouldn't stress myself out trying to get it to happen. So I'll still get it done. I'll still get it blocked, but the odds of me wearing it to dinner tomorrow are pretty slim, and I'm okay with that. I can wear it for Thanksgiving with my family when we do it next week. So not a big deal, but a little bummed. I was so close. But yeah, that's, I'm knitting the size 2. I don't remember how much positive ease that gets me. I'll take some final measurements when I'm all the way done with it and get you guys the stats. I did go for the very first time, she called for the Italian bind off on all of these, which is the sewn bind off with the double knitting rounds, setup rounds beforehand. And I'd never done the double knitting setup rounds before and figured, sorry, my knitting needles keep hitting a bowl down here if you're hearing the clinking. But I'd never done the double knitting rounds before. I figured I might as well give them a try. Like, you know, what do I have to lose? And I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel. Because on the one hand, I do think it made a difference. I feel like it's almost more of a feel thing than a looks thing. But it did give it a very nice edge. And it has this really nice rolled over look on it. Look to it. It's very sturdy feeling. It's just like, it's like plumper. Like it has more fabric in that bind off, and so it just feels more stable and more filled out, and it feels really nice. It's nice and elastic, but like maybe like slightly more structured than without the double knitting. I don't know. I might be making this up. But I'm not sure it's like so much nicer to be worth the extra time. But also I don't mind double knitting, so like I don't mind the extra time. So I guess my takeaway from this is however you want to bind off your sweaters is perfectly fine, and they all look nice, and they're all worth learning and giving it a go and deciding what you like to do best. Like, yeah, it does actually make a difference, but I think it's really up to the knitter on whether that difference is worth it or not. So it was interesting. We'll see if I do it on future projects or if I don't feel like doing it at the time or what. I have no idea. So we'll see. All right, so that's the only whip that I have to share with you guys right now. I do have another sweater that I'm working on, the Kip Sweater. But a couple of weeks ago, I was going somewhere with my husband and I brought the sweater along with me and I left it in his car, and it's just been in there for the last 2 weeks. So not only do I not have it to show you right now because he's gone for the day, but I also haven't done anything on it for 2 weeks. So I don't know, maybe when I get the Oslo Sweater done, I will feel more inclined to work on the Kip Sweater. I don't know what it is about the sweater because I really do love it, and I love the design and I love everything about it. And it's not that it's hard to knit or anything like that, but I just have a tendency to put it down and completely forget about it and just forget to make progress on it. So I'm not sure. I'm motivated to get it done in the next bit here, but we'll see. So with that, I'm going to go into my yarn acquisitions. I'm going to go through these fairly quick because I have quite a bit, but figured it would be fun to show off what I bought at the Knit Picks sale. So Knit Picks was having 2 sales at once. So they have their 246 sale where they offer various skeins of yarn for either $2, $4, or $6, which is I always find great things during that sale. And then at the same time, and this is still ongoing, they have their big yarn sale for the end of the year. And so they just have really deep discounts on all sorts of yarns throughout the website. So it was a combination of both of those where I got all these yarns. So my first one that I picked up was some Wonder Fluff. So Wonder Fluff is a bulky weight blown yarn. It is 70% baby alpaca, 23% nylon, and 7% merino wool. I picked up enough of this yarn to make the Berlin scarf by Susanne Muller. And I've been wanting to make that scarf for a little while now. And my vision for it had been in like an off-white or maybe a beige, like a nice neutral color that I could wrap around myself and go, and it would just be a nice staple for the winter. However, the yarns I'd been looking at to get a scarf quantity, it was going to be like $100 or, you know, like it was going to add up quickly. Scarves just take a lot of yarn. And so when I saw the Wonder Fluff was on sale, I was like, absolutely, that yarn would be perfect. But I was sort of limited to which colors were on sale. And so I have since changed my vision. But the Wonder Fluff Ombre was what was on the best sale. And so this is, it's going to be hard to see in the light here, I think, that I have going today. But this is a gradient yarn that goes from like a burgundy all the way to a black. And so my plan is to go from burgundy to black and then do the ombre in the other direction when I join. So it'll go black to burgundy and repeat if needed. I also picked up one ball of just the burgundy. This is the color Black Cherry. And so I figured this would be for the ends of the scarf because I definitely want to make sure the little tassels are in the burgundy color. And then just to extend the ombre anywhere that I need it. But that being said, I went from having nearly like $100 scarf plan to this was a little over $20 for all of the yarn that I needed. So very affordable and very excited to cast this on. And it is seriously so soft. And I'm excited to be able to show you guys the colors when I have better lighting one of these days. So next up, I got 3 balls of the Lindy Chain yarn, which is a fingering weight chainette yarn. It is, let's see, 70% linen and 30% Pima cotton. And I got these in the color Hollyberry. And my plan for these is to knit another ranunculus. I did one earlier this year in a lace weight, silk and merino. And so I thought doing a fingering weight linen would be a fun, variation to see how that goes. And I'm just, this color's beyond stunning. So I'm excited to play with that. That one probably won't get cast on for quite some time. Next up, I did order 6 balls of Knit Pick Stroll in 3 different colors. So my plan is to do a little bit of sock gift knitting. And so I got the colorways Sequoia Heather, Flagstone Heather, and Barn Door Heather. And so these were all on a really good sale. It was a really good price, and I'll be knitting some socks. Next up, I got one other sock yarn. This is the Hawthorne DK yarn, and it is 80% superwash wool and 20% polyamide. And this is in the colorway Delphinium Kettle. And I did think it would be fun to knit a pair of DK weight socks and have a little bit of a quicker project and get some nice warm fluffy socks out of it. Not fluffy, but you know what I mean. Comfy socks, cozy. And then last but not least, I picked up yarn for another Hue Shift Afghan. I know, believe it or not, I'm going to make another one because I have 2 nieces, and so I need to knit the other niece a matching blanket. It will not be for this year. This is definitely a next Christmas type of gift. But I switched up the colors just a little bit. It was partially because certain colors weren't in stock anymore at Knit Picks, but also partially because my second niece is very much like a little bit of more of like a bright pink, pinks and purples and a little bit more girly kind of aesthetic. And so I wanted to make sure I put in a little bit more of that into the other one. So these are all the warm colors. We've got Mulberry, Fairy Tale, those are the same. I switched out Satsuma for Pucker, just this really bright pink. Or not Satsuma, I switched out Serrano for Pucker. Satsuma's the same as in the other one. And then the yellow changed, instead of canary, it's sunflower. And that's just because they were out of the canary. But I actually really like the sunflower color a lot better. And then for my cool tones, we have our alfalfa, mint, marina, and Gulfstream are all the same. I know I'm dropping yarn everywhere. But I did change out the navy for celestial. I didn't love the navy, and the other one I thought it was a little too close to the black. So, and then I picked up a bunch of extra black as well to finish out the second one. So I don't think I'm going to cast that on right away since I just finished the first one and I'm just not ready yet. But I did get all the yarn for it since, the price was right and this is the time to do it. And so I will be making a second matching one because I just like I thought about making her a different pattern, but I just really like the idea of them having matching blankets. So but yeah, that is all I have for you guys today. And it was a lot. So I'm excited to get some stuff cast on the needles and making up some more projects now that I'm getting through all my whips. So With that, I will talk to you guys next time. Let me know in the comments what you guys are making. If you have any gift knitting plans coming up, I'm probably going to be sharing with you guys my gift knitting plans here pretty soon because I got to get started on them or I'm going to run out of time. So I would love to hear in the comments what you're planning on making and maybe seeing if it can inspire me a little bit. But with that, this has been awesome. It was great sitting down with you guys. I will see you guys next time. I hope you have a great day and I hope you got some knitting in. Bye.